You are listening to Living with ADHD and CPTSD, available on Apple Podcasts and other platforms everywhere. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Living with ADHD and CPTSD. Today is part one of a two-part series on feeling unwell or sick or having a bad night and dealing with ADHD and CPTSD. The reason that I am making it a two-parter is because this affects both disabilities. Your ADHD and the CPTSD can be heavily affected in negative ways when you are not feeling at your best. Whether you are sick from the flu or have a cold, or you're physically feeling like sore or have a headache, or you're just mentally having a bad day and you're triggered from the beginning of the day, you know, that kind of thing. Your abilities to deal with and to handle the ADHD symptoms and the CPTSD triggers and flashbacks is a lot harder. And I'm going to discuss a lot of my own examples from my life, as well as some advice and some information that I can provide to you, the listener. So hopefully in the future, when this occurs to you, you'll have a good understanding as to what to expect. So let's start off. By the way, I will be talking about both ADHD and CPTSD tonight. And tomorrow we'll be continuing on part two, and we will just continue going in about all the problems that can occur, the signs that you're obviously not doing well, those sort of things. And we'll wrap it up on Saturday to end the week's 2 episodes. Okay, so I have a real good immune system, and I don't get sick very often. And when I do, it is basically like a cold. I get an ear cold, throat cold. My nose can get a bit runny, but I don't really get very sick. And when it comes to the flu, to be honest, I don't even remember the last time I had the flu. So I have no memories of getting to that point of the level of sickness. But when I am feeling unwell, or if I'm having a mentally rough day, my symptoms and the issues that occur from ADHD and CPTSD are a lot more active, and I am more susceptible to experiencing them all the time. So everybody's a little different, and obviously no two people are alike when it comes to these disabilities, but I'm sure we all can agree that when we are feeling unwell, like we're sick, both physically, let's say you got a real bad headache, or you're just super achy and restless because you have been doing a lot of walking, or you're standing a lot, or you're just maybe doing way more movement and being more active than what you would typically do on a daily basis. The likelihood that you're going to have affected problems from ADHD increases a lot. And I have so much personal experience with this that it's something that you don't realize until you have a lot more experience and understanding of the disability. I remember where I would be coming home from a day, like a typical work day. I didn't get a lot of sleep the night before, and so I would be tiring out probably by about 2:30 that day, and I would be just like no motivation. And lack of motivation is a symptom of ADHD, and I was really having none of it. I didn't want to make food. I didn't want to take the dog out for a walk. All I wanted to do was like order some fast food from Skip the Dishes, which is a Canadian delivery service that gets food from restaurants, but that's besides the point. So I would just want to sit in my chair and turn on TV shows or watch a couple of movies and relax. I might even fall asleep and have a nap for a half an hour and really do nothing. Like, I had no motivation, and I think the reason is because I knew that I was just not feeling up to par, and I didn't want to really have anything else occur. Like, I was so not into it. I think it was like a kind of like a subconscious decision to avoid possible like triggers for CPTSD, ADHD symptoms. Like, back then, I didn't really know that I had these, the ADHD and the CPTSD, but that didn't stop me. Like, I guess I just knew in some way that I didn't want to put myself out there, knowing that the likelihood of symptoms or problems occurring were much greater. And so it would, sit on the chair, do nothing, go to bed. And me not exactly sleeping well for many years, I could never seem to get a decent night's sleep. And on top of it, I would get a second wind at night. So it'd be about 10:30 in the evening and about half hour, 45 minutes from my bedtime, and I wouldn't be tired, and I really didn't feel like sleeping. So I would finally shut the lights off at midnight, and then I'd be getting up 7:30, and of course I'd be waking up in the middle of the night. I'd wake up before the alarm went off, so I wasn't even getting a proper night's sleep, so I'd be tired. But the problem is you got to work. You can't just call in sick because you didn't get a proper night's sleep and you're feeling kind of rough. So that would affect my ability to do my job in a proper way. Like, my susceptibility to forgetting things at work were much higher. Like, I can remember how many times where I would forget to, I'd leave the building and go about my day and forget something and have to turn around and go back. And the likelihood of it occurring when I was tired and not doing well mentally and physically, for that matter, was way higher. And so the need and the realization that having a good night's sleep on a regular basis was very evident to me. But getting it was another question. There was nothing I could really do. Like, I could fall asleep easily, but once I was asleep, I would wake up. Like, you kind of get in and out. You have your deep sleep where you're dreaming and you're getting most of your rest and recovery. But there would be a lot of times where I would like just be awake enough that I would open my eyes and look out the window, and my brain's thinking, is it daylight time? Was the alarm going off? And no, of course not. So I would fall asleep. I would be so susceptible to increased likelihood of making mistakes when I was not feeling well that it almost got to a point where I was paranoid, or I would be so scared of making mistakes that I would overcompensate. And overcompensating is a very common theme. And I know for a lot of people who suffer from ADHD that when you compensate, you're going to make mistakes in other areas that more often than not you wouldn't, because you have a routine, you have a specific way of doing things, obviously, like in the routines episode where I discussed the importance of it. You change your behavior because you really want to try extra hard to not allow these, your lack of sleep and your feeling tired or feeling unwell, or if you got that headache, which I did get at times, it would really make the entire day almost like a write-off. I would make a lot of mistakes. I would forget important steps, or just forgetting details, walking out of the office unprepared, or not doing all the things that were required before, declaring everything done and moving on to the next step, to deploying a computer system to somebody. I made a lot of errors, and I also, communication would be low. It would be like, okay, think of it this way. Your ADHD is already causing you problems, right? So you're making mistakes, you're forgetful, you're having a hard time focusing. I'm sure I can't think of all of them right now in the moment because I'm so involved in this discussion here, but still. So with me, I would be more susceptible to having a trigger that would totally throw me off. So I would get super worried about making mistakes because of the fact that I knew that I was tired, or my headache would really make things next to impossible. Because I would get headaches. Like, I have this neck injury from many years ago that can cause the neck to seize up. Like, the muscles are super tight on the one side. And what happens is a lot of times when I would wake up in the morning, because of the way I would be laying in bed, is it would make the headache come over the top of the head, like from the back of the neck. And I would get really incredibly difficult and painful headaches. And I would spend most of the day just barely being able to do anything. Like, I would do my work, but I would be very miserable. I wouldn't talk very much. I wasn't really sociable. And, well, I'm not very sociable as it is due to my ADHD and CPTSD. You have a lot of trauma related to communication skills and social skills. And it's amazing how the likelihood of having a trigger when you're feeling unwell or sick, or you've got that headache, it's so much bigger, because your system, like your child parts, are going to be more on alert, right? Like, they're going to have a higher alert level because they know that you're already, like, you're feeling sick, you're feeling crappy. Maybe it's, well, I'm rambling a bit here, but the point is when your parts can feel that you're not having a good day, like you're feeling sick, so you're more susceptible to things getting you off your day and ruining it, that they're going to be higher up, like they're going to be on a greater alert, and they're going to be more susceptible to getting triggered and experiencing a flashback. So you really have to be careful. And that was one thing I did, is that I had to be careful. I couldn't just go about my day like normal. I had to be careful. So, it's a fine line, and you got to be careful of how you go about your day in order to be avoiding having a flashback, which can set you back, for some people, a lot of your day, and just make it impossible to continue doing anything. So let's take a break. I will come back and continue discussing this, and then we'll keep going. Okay? All right. Thanks. All right, welcome back to Living with ADHD and CPTSD. As some of you may be aware, I have a dog and 2 cats, and sometimes they can get into a little bit of trouble, and you might hear them in the background. Matter of fact, you may be hearing one of the cats right now. He wants in the room. And so please just don't worry, he's not in trouble or he's not hurting or anything. He just wants to come in the room and explore my closet, which, they love to do. Okay, all right, continuing on with the episode. So, I'm already very susceptible to getting triggered and having a flashback because I'm still in the early stages of learning about CPTSD and learning about my child parts and understanding what they're about. And so when a flashback occurs and I'm still understanding the origins of it and trying to unblend from my child parts and do some processing, the idea of being sick, even if it's just like under the weather where I've got a nasty cold and I'm sneezing and have a bad cough, especially in the time of COVID, we're all dealing with this pandemic right now. So yeah, just imagine 5 years from now, someone's going to listen to this episode and go, "What? COVID? Oh, right, that." Yeah, like we're ever going to forget this. Anyway, I feel like the best way to, in my experiences, to avoid having flashbacks is to try to do as minimal as possible. And this is assuming that you aren't going to work and you're not, leaving the house and making yourself vulnerable to the, being exposed to all the possibilities of experiencing a trigger. If you can stay home, like if it's a weekend or if you're calling in sick to work, try to have everything pre-planned. Don't go at it blindly because like ADHD and CPTSD both, if you've got a routine or if you have someone who can help, like, if you've got a partner or if you've got a friend or a roommate or if your husband or wife is at home, don't feel afraid to ask them for help, especially if they know that you are dealing with this disability and they realize that you're going to be more vulnerable to having a trigger or your ADHD symptoms are going to be more likely to be occurring when you're feeling unwell. I'm sure, they're going to be more than happy to help and make your lunches or your breakfast or bring you a hot drink or if you've got a fever or something like that, help you get it down. Try to not get too wound up. Like I said, I haven't exactly been sick very often. Thankfully, I feel very grateful that I haven't had to deal with having a serious illness while also experiencing ADHD symptoms and getting a trigger from my child parts at the same time, which does occur quite often, even in regular days when I'm feeling fine. But it's tough, right? So unless you have no choice and you live on your own, which I know a lot of you do, that going out and getting food or having to go to work when you're not feeling well doesn't really make things any better for us. And I'm just so used to avoiding situations because I know that feeling crappy is not the best thing for me. And like I said earlier, now that I am aware of having ADHD and CPTSD triggers, the easiest thing for me to do is just to avoid if when possible, interaction with not just people, but also with situations, events, traffic, environmental factors, like trying to like do something that you like, something that will be a good distraction, because it's not always a bad thing to dissociate. Like, I used to think that dissociating was always a bad thing because that meant that you couldn't be present, that you weren't able to handle a trigger from the past. But dissociating can be a healthy thing too, when you just are, so stressed out and doing so much, especially if you're feeling ill. It's a good way to let loose and to just relax, like put on a really good movie. That was my way of coping. I'd put on one of my favorite TV episodes. I like Friends, and I like Frasier, and I like to watch documentaries, but I also like The Simpsons. I hope that a lot of people out there are big Simpsons fans. Anyway, that's one of those things that you find what works. Perhaps for a lot of you, reading a nice book or listening to a podcast about science, or maybe watching cartoons. Hey, watching cartoons is a really fun thing to do when you're not feeling well, because unless you're super sick and all you want to do is sleep, that's one thing. But if you're not feeling good, you've got a massive headache, God forbid you're suffering from a migraine, oh my God, that would just be very unfortunate. And I feel sorry for anyone who has to deal with a migraine and has ADHD or CPTSD. That would be tough. ADHD symptoms are really difficult in the best of times, and dealing with ADHD symptoms when you're not feeling good is just the worst thing in the world. And in the times that I have had a bad day, whether it was a really bad headache or really poor sleep, or mentally I was just not myself, the likelihood of having problems were so good, like so much more likely. And my girlfriend would notice, I would always say, oh, I'm not having a good day, I'm not feeling good, I feel I'm super tired, I didn't get a good sleep. And I wouldn't even have to say it, right? She would just know exactly what I was saying. That when I would say, "Oh, my ADHD isn't doing good. Like I'm having a lot of problems today," she would say, "Yeah, well that explains it. You're off. You're not having a good day. You're feeling, you're so tired that you're not having a good day ADHD wise, or you're not functional." That was one of her. That is one of her big phrases that I hear a lot from her, is that you're not functioning well today. And it's true. You don't function well. I wish it were something like you could just suspend time or call a timeout, like in sports. Like, it would be nice if you could just call in sick and not go to work, and then call in sick to your friends, or tell the wife or the husband or your partner, I need a day to myself. I just need to go and chill out and zone out. Like, why would we want to deal with these symptoms, or possibly cause a trigger because you're highly susceptible due to the way you feel? Like, I'm pretty sure that most of us on any day, especially when we're feeling like really unwell, we would want to avoid any possibilities of having a trigger, or our ADHD symptoms being so much higher due to the inability to focus as well as we would try to. We don't focus, and we have a hard time listening as it is, right? So when you're not feeling well and you're highly distracted due to having a cough or a runny nose, or your eyes are watering, or that headache, or you're just massively achy, like your muscles are sore and you got restless leg syndrome or something like that, you know already that you're just going to have a high chance that you're going to feel like nothing's working, and that everything you do, you're making mistakes, or you're always forgetting, and forget people talking to you. Like, you can't focus at all. It's so difficult for us to focus now. And then when you're feeling crappy throughout the day, the last thing you really want to do is focus on something, especially for any length of time, right? If you do need to, and you don't have a choice, and someone's talking to you, or they're showing you something, and they say, hey, look, watch this video on YouTube, or watch this TikTok video, and you're really going, oh, God, like, I can barely focus, and he wants me to look at this thing. It'd be nice if you could have like a little light on you, or something that you could carry around that could say, leave me alone, I'm feeling crappy, I don't want to deal with this. It's not a fun thing. I really don't like the idea of having to talk to somebody, or do work, or think about something, or being really focused on a task, having to clean the house, vacuum the floors, clean the bathroom, do the dishes, make dinner, take care of the animals, talk to your significant other when you're sick, or when you're having a massive headache. Everything just feels so much more difficult. It's 10 times harder to do anything. And the fact that we're having to also deal with CPTSD and or ADHD issues coming up as frequently as they could, we just want to be alone. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's this misconception that we should be around people, like, there's nothing wrong with being by yourself. Being lock your doors in your room, or not coming out of your apartment and just going into a dark room and reading a book, or listening to some music, or sleeping, which is always fun to do, or watching a movie, and just making a simple meal, like having a chicken soup, or making a sandwich, or having a hot coffee, or a tea, like a healthy tea, and just doing nothing, relaxing. Doing minimal of anything is so good for someone. And the next time I do get sick, which, I hope is a very long time from now, I don't want to be a bother. Like, I'm not saying that I am a bother. It's just that I would like to deal with it in my way. I don't want to have to think about anything but just getting through the day and dissociating, or zoning out and having a good laugh, having fun, being just la-di-da, goofy, trying to let yourself be free and not worry about your ADHD symptoms or your CPTSD triggers, because being triggered when you're sick is just the worst thing in the world. Like, I don't know anybody who would really want to even have to think about that. So take a time, take it easy, relax, allow yourself to dissociate, allow yourself to just have a think-free day. I know it's difficult with ADHD because our minds are going 1,000 miles an hour, but if you can zone out and block everything out that's not important to you in that time, by all means, go for it. Enjoy that day. Take that day and do what you want to do. That's the best way, in my opinion, to deal with it. Okay, that's part one. Tomorrow, I'm going to get further into this, but specifically, I'm going to talk about being unwell and having to work, or being in a relationship, or having kids, or, in a situation where you don't have that ability or the possibility to do nothing or take the day off, where you must work or you must still be in control despite feeling crappy and dealing with your ADHD and or CPTSD issues. So tune in tomorrow and we'll wrap up this two-parter, okay? Alright, everybody. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye.